We are live.
Good morning, Fantasmagorium. The program. Sorry, hang on just one second. Here we go. Good morning, Fantasmagorium. The program that you are proud to present is Missions, Matches, and Masks. Macquarie returns. Tom Cruise is back as Ethan Hunt. The whole team returns. No Renner, but mostly everybody. Isai Morales. Come on. Palm Clement Mantis Teeth? Sure. Haley Atwell, come on. Stars. That guy from Kong Skull Island. And TC, Tom Cruise, jumping off a mountain on a motorcycle. Man, I miss Brad Bird. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to discuss Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Should any of your team be interrupted or drunk, the secretary will disavow the stream. I am Scotty R37. Cat is the entity. Steve is the cruciphon key. And Ernesto may self-destruct in 5 seconds. I don't know. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing good.
I'm doing all right.
I underestimated how heavy these things are, but I do like them.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, my. Well, what was... Ernesto, what was your first encounter with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
I took my father to see it at the biggest IMAX screen I could find. The same one we went to see Top Gun Maverick once we were all able to go en masse to the movie theaters post-COVID. And we had a great time. There was a moment where my father looked at me and was like, "It's over? There's no more?" And I'm just like, "Have you seen the watch?" Like, yeah, we've been here for a while. But we had a good time. The action was great. Everything looked great on the big screen. Both my father and I are big fans of Isai Morales. You know, he's our Hispanic representation in that movie. Dude was charming and a half as a villain, probably the most charming villain this franchise has had, where you know he's evil, but at the same time, you're just like, I can see myself working for him, even though he's kind of insane right now because of what he's doing. There are some moments where I'm like, I don't think we need to be doing this, but enough of the stunts are there to keep the attention, and the humor's there, the characters are there. From start to finish, it's an overall good time.
Kat, what were your opinions?
I first saw this, I think, in a regular theater. Then I saw it in IMAX. I thought it was really fun. You start, for me anyway, I started feeling the runtime when we got to the train, and which is odd because the next movie is even longer, but it didn't feel as long as this one. For some reason, it just feels longer to me. I think the signature stunt with the motorcycle that they advertised like crazy in the lead up to the movie, if you look at the behind the scenes footage of it, that was a lot more terrifying than watching the stunt in the actual movie, because they replaced the ramp with a CGI rock promontory that is so obviously CG. I think the shot could have held longer with the bike when he's falling off the cliff. And so that kind of took me out of it. There's also a lot of noticeable CGI in the climax with the train. And like, I didn't really believe that Ethan was dangling off the train, or that they're like, you know, CGI, you can get away with it in the dark, like in the Lost World, when you have the trailers go over the cliff and they're dangling down there. It looks real because at night when it's dark, you could hide somewhat shoddy CG. Well, this is like broad daylight and everything. And when all the tables and all the stuff is falling down on them, it's like at no point did I believe they were actually dangling over that. And for most action movies, that's fine. But like, this is Mission Impossible. When you look at the helicopter chase in the last movie, it's like you've racketed up a bit. But I thought the car chase was really good. I loved the scene at the airport. I thought that was really fun. And I did like the opening sequence on the Sevastopol, seeing what was going on. That was kind of interesting. I agree with Steve and his summation when he said there was like a lot of coincidences in this movie.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear what Steve has to say about it.
Yeah, but I liked it. We'll get into it.
We'll get to Steve.
Do you want me to go next?
Well, when did you see it for the first time?
Just the other day, over the weekend.
Now, what I do have to ask you, and you will get to the punchline, do you still have a television?
I do.
That's good. Please explain.
I love my television. and it's too big to actually throw out the window. But I
The
want
window or the TV?
whatever.
Which is
No,
bigger?
the TV's too big to fit through the window.
Nice.
I have to go out the front door.
Yes.
I couldn't stand that train sequence. The movie was already, I thought the length, like Kat said, is already overly long. Way too many coincidences through this thing. I was like, it's just the silly was way up there for me. And then that train sequence happened. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ! It wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't be over. And I'm like, dude, this needs to stop, or I'm gonna turn this fucking thing off. So yeah, I hated that scene. I like the airport scene. I love the opening in the sub. That all that stuff was okay. It was fine. It was peak Mission Impossible. But man, there was a lot of coincidences towards the middle to the second act into the third act, and the whole third act was just kind of silly and too long, and I didn't appreciate the ending. There's some things that happened okay, but
you know what? Along the way, I'm going to agree with a lot of what you disliked. I'm going to say that it is silly, but I'm also going to say I liked it. Like, I'm going to acknowledge that most of the logical inconsistencies, some of the tonal decisions of the film they absolutely threw me. And then there are other parts where I'm going to be like, come on, this is fun. Like, and having seen the Final Reckoning, and I suppose, like, this is a two-parter. This does say Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then the Final Reckoning. So I don't know. Are they going to make it
Dead Reckoning Part 2?
Anyway, the thing is that I prefer this film to the final one.
I haven't seen that one yet.
You're in for torture. Spoilers.
I don't know if I want to spend money on this movie.
Yeah, you should. You should. You're part of a show that reviews Mission Impossible movies.
I should. So, like, before the show started, Scotty had a really good advice. He said, "Go on Tuesday. Discount Tuesday."
Yeah,
maybe I'll do that.
But today we talk about Dead Reckoning Part 1. And so now that, like, I saw it for the first time last week, and I really liked it. I thought it was playful, and I thought it was exciting. I enjoyed all of the additions of to the cast, and also I was I was shocked by certain, as we get into the movie, I was shocked by some of the deaths.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I feel the same way.
Like, I thought that was jarring, because I figured, anyway, are we going to do spoilers? Should we just say spoilers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Movie's already 2 years old. We can.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ilsa Faust, she gets stabbed in the chest.
Yep.
Stabby.
She did.
She gone.
Christopher McQuarrie recently just said one of the things about Mission Impossible movies is death is real and permanent. And so I don't know. He also referenced that people were not satisfied with her death. How did you guys feel about her death?
Well, considering that she was easily the best part of Rogue Nation and carrying over to Fallout, it was like she is the best decision this franchise has had since the revamp in Part 3. And when that happened, I was probably the loudest gasp in the theater. I was like, and you know how sometimes your brain, when you suffer a trauma, it goes into self-defense mode. It tries to protect you. So it kind of like shields you from a certain psychic, like a psychic blocks you. For whatever reason, when that happened, my brain automatically went into it's okay, maybe she's going to be taken off the chessboard until they make a surprise reveal later. No problem. But because that never happened in the movie, and when the credits roll, I'm just like, you better not. That was like the most frustrating out of the theater experience. As much as I had fun with this movie, taking her out like that, I'm like, what the fuck? It felt very unceremonious at the same time. But then we go back to the scene from Fallout, and it kind of felt like a wrecking ball with Angela Bassett saying, yes, they would. That's the job. And I'm like, shit, I didn't think you were that literal. It just happened. I'm like, fuck, where do we go from here? So it took me out.
I thought they telegraphed it. I wasn't surprised by it. I knew one of them, obviously, they say it. One of them's going to die. And I'm like, they're not going to kill Haley Atwell. They don't bring her out here just to kill her off. You're that quick, right? So I thought it was kind of telegraphed.
And in the beginning, when Kittredge is like, that's the pattern, isn't it? You get her out of trouble, and she always finds her way back in. And it's like it's getting a bit repetitive now. And I admit I was kind of annoyed with it's like, how many times does Ethan have to come through before you learn to trust him? Because she still doesn't trust him. And yeah, she's the one who presumably found Ethan in Rome when Benji opens the door of the van and they rescue him. But I know on a fourth wall breaking level, she wanted out. Like Rebecca Ferguson didn't want to be in it anymore because McQuarrie. What?
I didn't know that she wanted out.
Yes. So what happened? She confirmed this in an interview while promoting Dune 2 last year. And she said what happened is that McQuarrie and the writers really just wanted to make her another member of Ethan's team. And she didn't want to do that. She thought the appeal of her character was that she was like his equal, but that she was kind of mysterious, like a double agent, a rogue. She didn't just want to be that, like another team player. She's like, no, I'm not a team player. I want to be, the kind of this mystery person I've already been. And she didn't want to do that anymore. So that's why they killed her off, because she wanted out and wasn't going to do that. I admit,
and good for her.
Yeah, she stood her ground and says, "Fine, you can kill me off," and they did. And she played ball with it. I admit that part of the scene doesn't make sense because even though Gabriel, we know that when the next movie how he's communicating with the entity and it's figuring out all these things, it's like, well, it makes sense why Ethan ends up where he ends up in the canals because the entity is pretending to be Benji in his earpiece.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really make sense why Grace and Ilsa end up at that specific bridge with Gabriel just happens to be there. He's like, oh, it is written. I'm like, well, why are they there exactly? Like, how is that written?
Wait, I have an idea.
Hmm.
So because the entity is misleading Ethan, he's being all zigzagged all over the place. However, Gabriel is chasing Grace, right?
Yeah.
And Ilsa is accurately chasing Gabriel. Ethan is the one who's being all mixed up. So for them to all be in the same place at the same time, it makes sense.
Yeah. But for me, it was just like, because the way it's leading up to, her death, we keep cutting back to Tom. He's running. He's trying to find a way. He's trying to circle back. He's trying to, all right, the entity got to the earpiece, so I'm going to try to get there as fast as I can. Like the buildup, you're just like, go. You can make it. And when it doesn't happen and she dies, I'm like, fuck. But then we cut to the next scene, and you can tell that he suffered a great loss. And then we move on with the mission. I'm just like, really? We're just going to move on just like that? Like, for me, it felt like it was just like, and I get it. It's the mission. You have to continue. But because of so much that was built into the character of Ilsa Faust with Ethan, I thought we were going to get like a little bit more than just move on to the next part of the mission. That's why, to me, it was just like, no, there's still more. There's something's going to happen. Like, I just didn't want to accept it right away. And then the movie ends, and I'm like, shit, I got to accept it.
Well, I think the kind of acceptance scene is also when Grace is back inside, when they're at the hideout or whatever, and she's talking to Luther about, and Luther explains the nature of Ethan and Ilsa's relationship. It's like, oh, that's when
Ethan is Jesus.
That's when it's like really real.
Yeah.
And to Scotty's point that these movies don't have stakes because they're not, characters aren't dying. Well, they just killed off a major character who was very
major.
Oh,
fan
sure,
favorite.
sure.
So that was
No, and that was big, and that was, and you know what? If you haven't seen Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, sorry, Ilsa dies. We already said it. It's too late now, but it is, and you know what? I do find that to, like, I knew someone was going to die, but it was unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Because
I
it was the
knew
first
someone
movie.
was going to die, and when it was her, it was just like, and also doing what she does best, and then middle-aged Mexican, sorry, does it to her, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He's not Mexican, but okay, continue.
I don't know. I'm racist.
Yes, you are, but still, that doesn't make him Mexican.
I don't know what he is. I respect his personal
I
privacy.
just told you he's representing me. What did you forget? What I am?
No, I don't see color.
Puerto Rican.
Sure.
I'm as white as you. What's wrong with you, man?
I did
Antisocial and stupid.
Speaking of Gabriel, I did love the very beginning when you first see him at the airport, where it's like Ethan is going one direction, and then Gabriel just walks up looking like totally suave. He's got he sits the briefcase with the psychometric bomb, and he's got the glasses, and he's just totally chill. And I just love that reaction that Ethan has when he first sees him. And it's the first time in the whole series where he's like, no, this mission's aborted. It's terminated. We're done. And it's like there was real fear there. And, you find out that he framed Ethan for murder, and that's how Ethan came to join the IMF. But they never prepare to be disappointed. Spoilers, if you were expecting more information about that backstory, more clarity, because they give you nothing.
Here's my thing. Here's my biggest problem with Dead Reckoning. Is that apparently every IMF agent is like a rescued criminal?
Yeah, right.
That's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Like, that's something that I think, like, I've spoken to old men who watched Mission Impossible on first viewing, and when they saw Mission Impossible 1, they were like, what did you do to Jim Phelps? And now, if you are a fan of the original Mission Impossible franchise, this film is not for you. Because even me knowing the reverence that people have for the original show, this is going to spit in the face harder than making Jim Phelps a bad guy. And they try and redeem it. They try. No, wait. That's not until the next one.
Don't spoil the next one.
I'm not going to do that. I won't spoil the next one until the next one. But I'm just saying that making every IMF agent a former criminal that had to be rescued by a government that was willing to toss them away callously is an abomination to the idea of the IMF force. It is like, and I hate to mix my genres, but it is like making all of Starfleet Section 31.
Right.
It's like, fuck you. No, the IMF is sanctioned. If you get caught, you will be disavowed. But don't worry, we'll take care of you. But if you get caught, shit's going to get real. All right?
We'll take care of you.
That's right.
Yeah, until we can't take care of you.
That's right.
And so making them criminals, this is almost like some sort of daredevil prison that I morally objected to.
Yeah, I often forget that Luther was a criminal. He was a hacker, and Ethan gets him to join the IMF, and he says, man, I don't like the idea of being this clean. I like being a smooth criminal. And he's like, well, if it makes you feel better, Luther, I'll always think of you that way.
It's good luck.
In Ethan's case, we never find out. Oh, what was that?
But that makes it more realistic. Governments hire people with questionable backgrounds to serve a greater purpose.
And I think that's right. But I think what Scotty is saying, a couple of people, and maybe one of them happens to be one of your best guys. but the whole IMF seems to be all of them.
Yeah, but
Well,
they're not
it's
all
you.
murderers.
It is.
But
It
they're not
is
all
like
murderers.
And they're all backstabbing, murder, treasonous.
Not
scumbags.
all of them.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
here's the thing.
but you're making it sound like
Ethan's
all
not.
of them are the worst of the worst. Not all of them are Gabriel.
No, but the thing is, and this is something that I feel that was lost along the way, is that like when they had the secretary, like when you had your positive contact with the government, who was like, watch your step, Ethan. And like Alec Baldwin was great. Like, and even Anthony Hopkins was amazing. Like everybody who's been the contact between the government and the IMF obviously exists, and it is clandestine with the American government. In this one, it just says, no, you guys are Ocean's 1100 and whatever. Like, I don't understand.
There's only 3 characters in the franchise, and 2 of them, Ethan's case, he wasn't really a criminal. He was framed.
Yeah.
And the other case, which we'll get to, don't spoil it for next week, we don't have
Well-
any specifics, so it doesn't necessarily mean the guy was a criminal.
Sure.
Thirdly, and then Luther, but that's it. They don't tell you anything else about, Benji or all the other guys who've joined over the various films.
But I always thought like Luther and Jean Reno they used to be agents of security, like intelligence agencies.
But
And,
Jean Reno was never
and
an
then they
IMF
were
agent.
disavowed.
Right, but Jean Reno was never an IMF agent in the first movie. Like
No,
Ethan
but who
recruits him
brought
to help him
Claire
out.
brought him in. Yeah.
Right, and then same thing in the sequel where what's her name? Not Thandie Newton. She's a professional thief, but he's merely using her, but she's never a member of the IMF.
No.
And then the villain in that one is a rogue agent. So
That's true. In that one, yeah, which is funny because to think about in the first 2 Mission Impossible movies, the villain is somebody from IMF.
But you can understand when I say people who actually thought that the Impossible Mission Force was a force for good. As these movies have gone on, it has absolutely dented and destroyed their idea of that protective agency. And so if you are a fan of the original and you don't like these new movies, I get it.
Well, how is it not a protective agency? They've been saving the world every movie.
They're all criminals that are under
We just
servitude.
established that they're not all criminals. We just established that only one of them was an actual Sean Ambrose, who was the villain in the second one, was a criminal, not necessarily before he joined the IMF. And then we established that Luther was a criminal.
No, but
Ethan was framed, so he's innocent. And then we'll get to the other one next week, which again they don't go into details. So
well, no, specifically to this movie, allow me to explain my logic. Is that there is that moment, and it starts off in the movie where pizza delivery guy shows up, and he's like, "You made the right choice." Ethan says that to pizza delivery guy, and then later on, after a while, Haley Atwell is that Grace is there, and they all say, "We were all in this position. Get out of your current life," which implied criminality. So even Benji was like, no, someone said, stop being a hacker and work for IMF.
or maybe Benji was just in a tight spot financially or something, and they offered him, "Hey, you're good at computer hacking. Why don't you join us? Or good computer programmer, join us."
So that's
We'll
blackmail.
No, that's an offer. You can either blackmail is where you literally have no other way out of it. In that case, it's like, "Hey, you want to join us, and we'll pay off your debt or whatever."
I thought the implication is that all of them had done something compromising, and that's why.
I've never gotten that sense from Benji. He seems to.
Yeah, Benji really seems like straight up the computer nerd that got an offer of a lifetime.
Yeah.
He knows how to work a video game controller with a, banking.
And remember,
computer.
he originally was just a programmer, but they established in Ghost Protocol that he's been undergoing training to become a field agent.
He is the checkoff of Mission Impossible. Yes.
Yes, very much.
I suppose.
So anyway, just details. I'm not angry at the movie. I actually thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the thing where to Steve's point where it gets really silly is when we get towards the end of the movie and it's like Gabriel doesn't just have explosives rigged to the bridge. He's got these high-tech bombs that look like they're from the future. And it's like, I get that the entity is using AI to manipulate people, and yeah, I could trick somebody or make a false order for somebody to deliver shit, but you need like a whole construction team to install that shit. And they didn't know that they were necessarily going to be making this rendezvous in the Orient Express till a few days earlier. It was like that all happened in a couple of days. So that's where, because remember in the previous movie, they made it believable that the bad guys had the nukes because they lose it during the exchange.
Yeah.
And so, okay, like the previous movies try and make certain things seem tangible. This, and it will continue in the next movie where Gabriel just has this high-tech shit.
No spoilers.
Because as Ernesto says, because the plot demanded it.
Yeah.
Yes, but at the same time, Gabriel says it is written.
Well, yeah, because the entity is,
Yeah.
configuring.
And because everything is probability based, it is very likely that if it would have worked out in the entity's favor, in Gabriel's favor, he probably wouldn't have any needs for those bombs in the third act, but they're there just in case somehow, some way Ethan was going to pull through, and he's going to be like, oh yes, well, I planned for this contingency. You see,
Right, I'm just saying that that's something that he would have had to know that like weeks in advance to get those there, to have them installed.
Yeah, to have those explosives created.
I would compare
but
it
it
to
was
like
written.
how in
That's the thing. They told you in the movie it's written.
Right, but it's written not that
But
far.
I agree. But I do agree. All jokes aside, I do agree.
Yeah.
That's very convenient.
Like
that was one of my least favorite things, is that because I've seen enough Star Trek episodes where it's like, what if we do this? But what if they want us to do this? I've seen enough movies where it's like, oh, this is where we should go. But what if that's where they want us to go? It's like that plot. No, but the entity, the ambiguous evil AI, the Skynet. And it's like when you have your characters double guessing themselves, it's like, you know what? This is boring dialogue. Make a decision. Like, I understand that you're nervous once, but if you start being nervous the entire time, I'm losing faith. And then when you win, I just feel like it's plot armor, and that's how it goes.
Well, one, they use a lot of that type of dialogue in Rogue Nation where it's like, what if this is what Solomon wants you to do? And even Ilsa says a lot of that in Fallout in this movie. But getting back to my point about...
And who wrote that movie?
The same people, I think.
Christopher McQuarrie. I have a bad feeling about that fella.
But getting back to my original point, it's sort of like how in the first few Iron Man movies, the fact that he's using a prototype suit is a major obstacle that has to be overcome that gets in the way of the plot of the first three movies. But then by the time you get to Infinity War, oh, it's just nanotech, it's just magic, and you're not meant to question it. And it's kind of like these last two movies where, oh, we need something really high. It's like the plot. It's like, here it is. Like, oh, Gabriel needs a couple new. Here they are. It's like.
and I get that the AI is kind of hedging its bets, right, and all possible outcomes. But the fact is that the plot needed those two men to be on top of the train at some time so they can have a fight. You know what I mean?
Because he has the dump truck set up ready to pick him up too.
So, but did you feel a little bit of a reference to the first movie?
I thought that's what it was meant to be, like a reference
to
what came before.
I thought that was kind of rad.
It was, especially when they're in the tunnel. But that CG
the tunnel's not real, but the stunts leading up to it are, and I liked it.
Yeah, the part, the stuff with the train in the tunnel in this one also looked really bad, and things were happening. It's like, no, you're gonna get blown off that train in 2 seconds. But especially when Gabriel uses the knife handle that he's got stuck in the side as like a swing to swing. It's like, no. But I do remember
it did get
railway.
Silly.
They did use the same railway that they've used a lot in England, like the fight in Octopussy on top of the train. That was the same railway, and so they're fighting along that same stretch there. So that was a cool knife fight, and again, it feels like the whole movie's like building up to learning more about what the deal is with Gabriel and Ethan. Like, I felt that there was more to that, something more personal there. Like, he gives
maybe there will be.
Yeah, in the flashback, he gives Ethan this kind of knowing look before he kills this woman, and it's like, what's that about? And you would expect that we're gonna, and I assume, because it's a two-parter, where they're gonna save that for part two.
You know what happened? You know what my theory is? I think they both crossed swords, and they've never been the same since.
Oh, they docked.
Yes, it was the same woman. They docked, and she had to die because she knew too much.
If anyone is ever actually listening to this broadcast, do not Google docked.
But you can Google cross swords.
You can find it in our Google Docs.
I did really like the two new CIA agents, Jasper Briggs, played by Shea Wiggum, and Theo Degas, played by I forgot, Greg Davis or Greg Tarzan Davis. Like those two were really fun.
And here's the thing, I love Shea Wiggum.
Yeah,
yeah.
Shea, whenever he pops up in anything, I'm like, yeah,
anything.
He always looks like he's the straight man in everything, and he reacts accordingly.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing, I had seen him before Kong Skull Island, and I was like, I don't like that guy. And then I saw him in Kong Skull Island, and I was like, I am in love with this man. And ever since then, whenever he shows up, I am just like, fucking A.
Yeah, because him and what's his name, the guy who played John Connor in Genesis, the actor, I forget his name.
Jason Clarke.
Yeah, him and Jason Clarke both look like they were plucked out of the early 1900s and put in modern times because they always look like they can portray anyone from the early 1900s because they just have that very old school classic actor look.
I don't know about
you don't see that often.
The only thing that bothered me about Shea Wiggum in the Mission Impossible was that I did not believe that character had that lustrous a mane of hair. He had like blow dryers, mousse. There was a lot of hair maintenance going on.
He was
there.
5'7", but he's 6 with hair.
We also saw him in the third season of Fargo, where he was the incompetent sheriff.
Oh, that's true too.
And he was Agent Carter's boss in first season.
He was.
That's true
Agent
too.
Carter. I like the running joke throughout the movie that his partner doesn't understand, where he keeps reaching for people's faces.
Yes, I love that.
And his partner's like,
man,
what are you doing? And I like that joke that they keep that going a bit in the second one. But that was, I thought that was funny. That was good.
You know what? Speaking of ripping at rubber faces, I was disappointed how much of a bumbling oaf that Kittredge was.
Well, he started playing both sides, right? Because he thinks that Ethan's upset with him because when he gave him his mission to retrieve the key, he didn't tell him that he was the one who put the bounty on Ilsa, which he did because he figured that was the fastest way for Ethan to find her because he'd follow the bounty hunters to get to her. And because he thinks that she's dead because Ethan, faked her death, he's like, I understand, you're upset. But then we find out at the end of the movie that he's the phantom buyer for the other half of the key because he wants to control it. So I kind of liked that he was doing that. Admittedly, he probably should have brought more muscle with him on the train to get things going his way. I was surprised that he was going to be honest to actually pay $100 million for the key instead of just like, you're in front of a notorious arms dealer who you think is a black arms. You could, boom, boom. Or if you need to keep her alive, you could just pay some some of your guys to be in plainclothes attire and to attack her or whatever and just steal the key. Don't spend $100 million on it. And I didn't believe for a second that even though Grace is having a change of heart, it's like, wait a minute, you're a thief who steals all sorts of great stuff all over the world. Why don't you just take the money and then just pickpocket it back? Because obviously she's smart enough to have a dummy account set up where she can't, just go back and trace. So I didn't buy that she wouldn't take the money. But it's the same thing with Kittredge. It's like, you're gonna have your guys on that train and not have to pay for that shit. But so I kind of liked him because he's kind of a bad guy playing both sides.
What?
He played it
Swift
better.
-1. What?
He played it much better than the CIA agent because that guy was like had a heart on for power. Like, oh my god, just give it to
Carrie
him
Elwes.
Yeah, Carrie Elwes. I mean, I liked him. Don't get me wrong, but every time he was on scene, I'm just like, dude, can you please be a little bit more conspicuous? Your obsession is showing.
He went out like a bitch, dude.
Steve,
That
Yeah.
was a great bit, though.
I have been admiring this film like a child sitting in front of jangly keys of adorableness and action sequences. I have to ask you a very personal question. If you had a choice between Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 or Minority Report, which is your more favored?
Minority Report. I love that.
Great.
I did think it was really fun.
Is there a Tom Cruise movie that you like less than Mission
Dead
Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
Yeah, the second Mission Impossible movie.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did love it when Dengler was like, imagine combining America's military-industrial complex with the entity, and he's too stupid to read. But like the way Gabriel is even asking the question, so you're the only one. It's like, dude, you know what he's gonna do.
Oh,
and then,
And this is one of those moments where I'm on the side of the villain because I'm like, can you just kill him,
Yeah.
please? Just kill him.
We didn't even mention that Carrie Elways.
I did mention it. You didn't listen. Said it
I
was
wasn't.
Elvis.
No, I don't. I don't watch this show. So
But do you listen?
rarely.
You know, because we were talking about the stunts in this movie, there was so much focus. I know, Steve, you mentioned you didn't like the train scene, but there was so much focus on the motorcycle jump scene that when we got to that train sequence, for me, I'm like, oh my God, there's a train sequence? Great. and then when it turned into a gotta climb the train, I'm like, oh shit. And when you're watching it in IMAX and the music just stops and all you're listening to is the sound team just like giving them their all in the sound mixing department, I'm like, yes, I am ready for this Universal Studios ride that I'm getting right now with Tom and Haley Atwell. And the biggest laugh in the movie, well, there were two laughs. One was with Benji constantly saying, well, you're Ethan Hunt, you can do it, just do what you do. And then the second one was where Tom Cruise had burst through the side of the window of the train at just the right time to kick the guy out. Everybody just lost it.
That was funny. That was funny. Stupid, but funny.
Yeah, and then my favorite fight scene was in the very tight alleyway in.
I thought that was fucking.
That was
rad.
like you felt every hit, everything. You felt it. That's how great it was executed.
It was so claustrophobic because you know, like, come on, we've seen these fights before, but in such a tight space, it's like there's only one way to go: fight that person or fight that person.
There was one of the better run scenes in this series in this movie.
It's a beautiful run. It's a beautiful
on top of the airport, in that wide shot when he's running down that whatever that walkway. Badass. I thought that was great. I'm like, I'm
burning calories just watching it because he's always running.
He's going. But yeah,
can we all agree that the face that Ethan has when Benji tells him there's a nuclear bomb here, he's just like, there's a what? That's exactly what you tell me to do. And when how long do we have? Less than 20 seconds. And he's like, what?
So he's like, listen to me. A nuclear bomb is something you bother me with. You absolutely bother me with.
Yes. But when he tells him how many seconds are left, you can see him like, oh my fucking God, we're gonna die. And you didn't tell me.
There are character moments, and I do like the fact that Luther and Benji are working together and figuring out what Ethan needs to know in the moment. Like, I love that because they are acting like a team.
Ethan, everything's under control.
You know what bugs me the most about these movies is the mask.
Tell me.
The fucking mask thing.
You don't like the mask?
They have fun with it. The problem is none of these people are the same height that they try to mock. It's just never. It's never, and especially Tom Cruise.
Do you like the movie Face Off?
So it's just come on, man. Come on, like it just man, just.
Well, with Tom Cruise, they always try and cheat it to make him look taller than he actually is.
Same as Robert Downey Jr. Yeah.
Well, in fairness, he was playing John Voight in that one scene, but he was sitting down, so they were able to get away with it.
That's true.
I did
That
think it
is
was
true.
funny too at the beginning of the movie when Ethan tells Luther and Benji what the deal is, that their mission's already rogue and this kind of thing. And Benji's like, wait, so you just expect that Luther's just gonna go in some back room and just make a bomb to kill the entity like that? And he's like, no one is safe from Phineas Freak, and it's exactly what I'm gonna do. I love it.
Yeah. And then the whole Rome scene, that was great. Well, 10 times better than the one in the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, that car
See,
chase was
that's-
excellent.
Yeah, now that's what I
It's
call a car chase.
It's interesting that you bring up the Fast and the Furious movies because there has been comparison and parallels between the escalation of both of those franchises. Which one do you think is sort of grown into its own, or which one has just become exploitative?
Oh, the Fast and Furious movies are more exploitative for sure. This one is growing and it's just getting more fantastical.
Yeah, because with
But
the
that one
Fast and
did
the
too.
Furious one, you get to Fast Five, and up until that point, that was the most top-notch execution when it came to the car stunts with the bank vault heist and everything. You are in it. That was like peak Fast and Furious. And then after that, then you get the airplane runway scene that just goes on for 50 fucking miles. Then you get them surviving a whole carport, a car garage falling on top of them, and they just walk out like nothing. And Vin Diesel lifting up a Ferrari car like it weighs 10 pounds. Like they just gave up after Fast Five.
Man,
I've never.
Mission Impossible, they go as far as they can to make everything look as believable as far as the execution of the stunts, regardless of whether you're looking at the mission itself. It's like, oh well, that's a little bit hammy, but it's all in the execution.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
Fast
like,
and Furious has just become
Sorry.
more of a cartoon show, and it's like,
Well-
are you here for it or not? And I admit, I was here for Fast 7. I thought with Kurt Russell, I thought was fun. It's totally ridiculous, but I had a blast with it. Same
I
with
love Kurt
Fast X.
Russell.
Like Jason Momoa understood the assignment. These are stupid movies. Let's just be really funny, and I thought it worked. But
At least with Fast X, I agree that when I was watching it, because I didn't go to theaters, I gave up watching it, but I saw it on Peacock, and whenever Momoa was on there, I'm just like, I fucking love this guy right now because he's the reason I'm still watching this sequel. But every time we cut away from him, I'm just like, yeah, can we go back to Bromoa being Bromoa? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm thinking of questions that really are to be posed at the end of our final Reckoning review. But I'm having such a good time. Like it is an amazing. Like I think that there's a lot of playfulness and heart. I think that even while Ilsa is there, and I think she is put to the sidelines, but that's also because that's what happens to a character when you don't know what to do with them, and then they have to die.
Mm-hmm.
And
also,
Haley Atwell, the chemistry between Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell is amazing. The movie was more about getting a MacGuffin than dealing with an existential threat, which we'll get to. But like all in all, this is a great chase movie.
Mhm.
I don't like, and in the first Mission Impossible, there was an incredible heist. There was something that people did that was like, how sneaky are you going to be? And now at the end of the Mission Impossible timeline, it's become, what spectacle are you going to present? Which, Hollywood movies, got to make it bigger. So sneaky turns into explosion in the sky. And I understand how it's escalated. And while I enjoy the spectacle, I kind of miss aren't you supposed to be spies? I didn't know you were an army. I didn't know you were blowing shit up all the time. I thought you were trying to stop that. So I kind of miss the point of the movie based on what I learned from the previous movie.
I think Abrams is the one who really changed that, because Mission Impossible 3 was really an action film. It's like, yes, they're still trying to do okay, we're spies, we got to kidnap somebody, but it becomes this big actioneer set piece, and then it
Yeah.
just becomes more of an action film as that goes on. But one of the things that each of these movies does is it presents like a key scene that's going to be like the badass stunt. Like in the first one, it was breaching into the Black Vault, and the second one, it was swan diving into the through the slats in the roof in the biosite place. And the third one, it was the Fulcrum jump, and the fourth one's the Burj Khalifa, and the fifth one is the the underwater vault. And the sixth one, you could arguably say it's either the Halo jump and the helicopter chase are pretty awesome. And then the seventh one is the motorcycle jump, which I mentioned didn't get shown as well in the actual movie compared to what it looked like on behind the scenes. And then, of course, the eighth movie, it's not a spoiler, it's on the poster, the biplane sequence. But it kind of does that where it keeps trying to up it, and you're right, Scott. It's like it's morphed into something else. It's not really what it started out as to begin with, which is kind of interesting. And when
sorry.
Like when they say that the final reckoning, like Tom Cruise was asked, is this the last one? And he says, well, it's not called the final reckoning for no reason. And I'm thinking, well, Mission Impossible has gone through so many different versions, from the TV show, then the reboot, which had 7 seasons. And if you recall, Peter Graves as James Phelps was not in the first season. It was David Hill. And they had problems with his schedule and everything because he was like religious. He had to go home at certain times of day and stuff like that. It was causing problems. So they replaced him with Peter Graves in season 2. So then it became a very different type of thing. And then that series just changed casts all the time. Like they had Martin Landau for a while. Then they swapped him out and got Leonard Nimoy. So it kind of did its own thing. And then they did the reboot series, which technically are seasons 8 and 9 because it's continuing the continuity, even though it was picking up 15 years after the show had ended. And then the first movie, continues that continuity by saying, no, the reason James Phelps became a villain is because he felt he served his country and did all this great stuff for them, and the severance package was shit. And he felt disrespected and all of that. And he's like, well, then fuck you guys, I'm going to do this. Which is why, understandably, the fans of the original series and the actors in the original series walked out of the screening that they got invited to because they felt it was spit in the face. So the fact that this franchise can keep reinventing itself and being different things, it's like, yeah, the next movie, Final Reckoning, maybe Ethan Hunt's last ride is Mission Impossible, but it could come back and transmorph back into something else,
Good.
But based on what you just said, like that is a disregard for the fans of the original show.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's evolved into something different.
Yeah, but evolved is also abandoning a previous fandom.
Well, yeah.
Right,
I
the
mean,
thing is,
when they bring this back in 10 years or 5 years or whatever, that it'll evolve again and abandon this fandom that happened to like these movies.
and admittedly, the
No,
TV
it'll be
show,
VR and you're jumping out of planes.
and admittedly, the TV show was the most successful because in the 60s you had that big spy craze that went on for a while. You had, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Get Smart, Mission Impossible, some others I'm sure I'm forgetting. But Mission Impossible was arguably the most successful because the original run lasted 7 years. So with 171 episodes, which is crazy. But it could come back. But yeah, it's changed into other things. But I do kind of like what it is. So.
And also,
well, I recall talking to you about the early Mission Impossible movies, and you referred to them as being 290s. So your opinion on Mission Impossible movies means the square root of jack squat to me, lady.
I didn't say that as a negative. It came out in the 90s. Yes, it was a 90s movie.
Yeah, and this is a 2020 movie. When did it come out? I don't
2023.
care. Yeah, this is a 2023 movie. And quite frankly, I find it playful. It's 4-quadrant. It's certainly, it's doing something to do a showcase. It's got something for the trailers. It's got something for the marketing. But I think that it is lacking a little bit in the, hey, coherent story and reverence for intellectual property. And the answer is no. And so I do get a little disappointed by that.
They already jumped that ship in the first movie when they made James Phelps the villain.
I know.
Right, but you're saying it almost like it's a new thing now that we're at the 7th installment, but they did that in the first one.
And they just keep rubbing salt in the wound.
But this always happens when you take a property for TV and reinvent it for a larger audience for the movie theaters. It is going to take a life of its own. And to your earlier question about Fast and the Furious and this franchise morphing into something different than when it started, With Fast and the Furious, they just stopped giving a shit and they just threw whatever they wanted in there to just escalate the next major sequence. Here, they're escalating because it's almost I don't know if fourth wall or a meta is the way I want to say it, because it's all in jokes of why they're escalating. That's why you get all those running sequences, because of the joke that, oh, Tom Cruise is always running in his movies, so let's make it into part of the narrative. Because he's so fixated on all the great stunts and making them look as great and as big as possible, well, they have to top themselves, so they have to morph it again, because they're now are self-aware that we're promoting the major stunts in these movies since the fourth movie, so we got to top ourselves regardless. What are we going to do next? So one takes the life of we don't give a shit, but one does give a shit, but at the same time it's a self-referential giving a shit because they put themselves there in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, and that's when a series becomes its own parody.
Now I'm curious if they're going to make another Mission Impossible after this one, and who knows how long, if it's going to be Tom Cruise or the next generation, if they're still going to maintain that feel, that grounded stunt that we're so enamored with them making it look as great as possible, or is the next series going to be CGI green screen bullshit?
I don't know if they can go back to green screen CGI bullshit, because that's kind of how this series.
So that's what I'm curious to see, because if you're not going to have, I'm sure Tom will be there in the producing, but is he still going to have his way of, no, we're going to make this look as real as possible, or is the next studio going to be like, or the next studio regime going to be like, yeah, you did that with your original series, and now we're going to do something different. You're either going to jump on or you're not. That's what I'm curious to see, if we can still get that sleek look to it.
Yeah. Oh, here's the
Steve, you be Tom Cruise, and I'll be Tom Cruise's agent. Okay.
What?
So just say yes. Say yes enthusiastically. So here's what we're gonna do with the next Mission Impossible movie.
What?
We're gonna make it all about Ethan Hunt's child.
That's
Son to
amazing.
Xenu.
Nah.
No, you're not gonna play along with the Scientology game? Okay.
No.
Only if it's on Mars. It's got to be on Mars. If it's on Mars, then I'm in.
Definitely on Mars.
I did like the other tease in the beginning when you could tell that Jasper has it out for Ethan, and his partner, and Theo's like, so do you know this guy? Not personally, but it is personal. And he gives him that look. And that was actually the number one thing I was curious to find out about going into the last movie. And I won't spoil it because we'll find out next week. But I like that you could tell, like, when he has Ethan cornered on the train at the end and he's trying to get him, just not kill Gabriel, which is something that Luther said as well. He's like, yeah. Ethan, I need to talk to you now as a friend. You can't let vengeance overtake you and kill Gabriel, because we still need him, because he knows, what this key unlocks or whatnot. And even though Paris does tell him it's the Sevastopol submarine, that still doesn't tell him where it is or much information on what that means. And so I like that when Jasper finally does confront Ethan on the train, he's like, don't you do it. And yet Ethan gets up, and even though Gabriel escapes, Jasper kind of believes him when Ethan's like, you need to do exactly what I say or everybody on this train is going to die. And he still has it out for him, but he trusts him enough that you have that great little payoff when he goes back to Kittredge, who told him a few minutes earlier, yeah, I'm not on this train. Otherwise, you'll be, in the postal office sorting mail next week.
Yeah, it was good.
So when Jasper comes back and Kittredge's like, what's going on? He's like, sir, since you're not on this train, it doesn't really concern you. I love it.
That was great.
Yeah.
No, I hated it.
And that scene at the warehouse when Ethan infiltrates the office and gasses it. I like that it was a callback. Again, this movie is a callback to the first movie when he's talking to Kittredge, and they're both sitting opposite sides, just like the first movie. And even the cameras looking up their nostrils in the same way. So I'm just like, oh, wow, we are doing referential here. Cool.
Well, yeah, but that's the reason that I had an issue with the relationship between Hunt and Kittredge, is because they had done the first Mission Impossible that I ever saw with Hunt and Kittredge, and they had not grown beyond it, and they were doing the exact same thing that they had been doing however many years earlier, and I found that to be disappointing, that they were still adversarial. Maybe I was anticipating a warm welcome, but it was just Kittredge was competent in the first movie. In these subsequent returns of his character, he's pompous. Yeah, he was pompous in the first flick, but he was never incompetent. And in these new ones, seems incompetent.
Well, I mean, only in the train sequence when he screwed up by not bringing, like I mentioned, like undercover arsenal or something with him. And we can't spoil next week, but we'll get to that when we get there. But
welcome to today's show, everybody. We can't spoil next week.
Our lives are the sum of our choices, and
I would say that I do really love.
No, Ernesto's in the middle of the soliloquy.
Ethan, this mission of yours is going to cost you dearly. I like how Kittredge talks. You ever seen Vengeance on ABC?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, he played the husband in that show, and every time he was on screen, I just ate it up. He was the best part.
Yeah, he's good. Good actor.
I did love the addition of Haley Atwell, though. Her characters are great. Like the chemistry she and Tom have is just instant.
That airport scene, my God, I would love to see the rehearsal because they were having a blast. The chemistry was right there. Just like, I'm like, damn, this is great. We're off to a great start here, people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have a chat. So good to see Daniel's Hot Topics.
Hi, Daniel. Sorry for yelling at you last time, but you made me do it.
And he yells at me too. I think Mission Impossible Final Reckoning will be the final movie. I hope not. Well, like in general, or the final Mission Impossible movie? Sinners had elements of insanity, but ultimate football.
Ultimately fumbled.
It did not fumble, but it was good.
The action scenes in Dead Reckoning save this film for me. The yellow car scene, yes, I love that too, dude. And its intensity, the train segment and the bridge from the moment to moment. Such an experience. I'm kind of with you on the action. I never had issue with the CGI or the falsehood of the train sequence. I liked it.
Ugh.
Can I
I love that as a response to ugh.
Can I
That's
ask, on the topic of the CGI and everything and the stunts and all that, as a viewer for the panel that I have here, when you get with these movies, you get a lot of stunts here. Is there what's like a ratio where you are as satisfied as a viewer between a mixture of CG and hard-earned stunts? Like if they give you like 80%, you're good with 20% of CG, or like where's your balance on that? Because these movies have a healthy balance of very, very stunning stunts that you can forgive when they have to rely on CG for other elements that they can't do realistically.
I just don't want to know.
My issue comes with how much they don't want to render a lot of the CG. It's why the train sequence elements, like when the train starts buckling on the track, that looked really fake. When the train's dangling over the river falling, that looks really fake.
Yeah.
And it's like you could render the time a lot better to make it look real.
Yeah.
Like when Ethan's base jumping thing off the cliff on the motorcycle, you could tell that looks real. I mean, yeah, the CGI rock promontory needed to be rendered a lot more so it didn't look as fake.
Oh
but
my God.
You can tell he's actually, skydiving or base jumping, and that looks really awesome.
You sound like a Karen at a salad bar.
He asked a question about CG, and I'm answering it.
I know, and I'm angry at your response. You're so
Why? Because it
picky.
is CG. You can see it. It doesn't look real. That's
I
what I'm
don't
saying.
see it. I didn't see it. Maybe I have a shitty TV.
It's like that's the problem with all the Jurassic World movies and the upcoming one. It's all the
Oh,
dinosaurs.
that's the only problem. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying that's what it is. Like the thing, like with those movies, part of what made the first movie work so well is that the animatronics mixed with the CG was so good, and the sequel trilogy of theirs, they did the Jurassic World movies. If it just looked all CG and fake, and Mission Impossible, I'll accept that up to a point. Like the first movie has the CIA thing. As a little kid, I thought the helicopter stuff was exciting, but watching it, again, was almost too fake. I didn't believe any of that was happening. So it has to look real, and you could forgive some of it, even if you could tell it's CG. But if it's at the point where none of it looks real, then I'm not there for it.
But it wasn't that at all. I didn't find it that distracting.
We've not given the film our ratings yet, Lemon, but we will soon.
And we're not doing hot peppers.
Well, no, but Lemon did want to ask you how many hot peppers you had. Hey, Lemon Pie, if you want to give a super chat, she'll tell you.
Literal hot peppers.
She only answers hot pepper questions for money.
Sinner says Dead Reckoning has some of the greatest action segments in the franchise, and the airport segment was so fun.
Yeah,
I love the airport segment. That was great.
Also, can we agree that is one of the most beautiful airports, designs?
Yeah.
Like especially the rooftop when he's running. I'm just like, can I meet the architect and congratulate them on their work? Jesus.
Oh.
Well, but so far, I still have to say that Fallout is my favorite.
Well, we'll get to rankings next week, but
I know, but I'm just saying, now I feel like we're on the downslide.
We're on the downslide.
But
I think for next week we can also ask which one is our favorite location that we visit.
I also didn't mind that in this movie, I think it's the longest before you have the titles gone. It's 30 minutes because they give you the nice slow burn of the Sevastopol opening. You then have Ethan get the mission. He rescues Ilsa, tells her to stay dead. You then find out he then infiltrates the warehouse so he could find out just what this key is all about. And I thought that payoff was really good when the match gets lit. I'm like, okay, I'm here for it, Yeah. And the follow up of that airport scene, great. And then the scenes in Rome, at least the car chase and stuff, wow, this is really great. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, a little afterwards is when the movie started sliding a bit for me. And like I mentioned, it feeling the runtime, but I still thought it was fun. I like that Grace isn't just immediately just that it's not a seamless adjustment to her being in that world. She's super not there for it and panicked towards the end when he's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "No, no, I'm not okay." And it's cool. You feel like a real person.
Yeah. Well, they established that also in terms of the yellow card segment with the driving, and I liked that, and I missed that whimsy subsequently. But when it was you're doing great, you're doing great. Well, Tom Cruise, because again, in the history of the film franchise, he's been a person who trains IMF agents. And so I did like that sort of training instinct that he had in the middle of a crisis. I thought it was really, really good. And again, with someone who was cool-headed and decisive, I think that Grace did a great job as a character as well. Yeah. Also, it was Haley out.
Oh, hello, Suzanne.
Suzanne!
Oh, that's cool.
Suzanne, why do you have me blocked on Twitter, yo?
Sinners also says, it's also perspective, I guess. It was the intensity that I cared about. The CG didn't matter at all for me. And that's great. I love that, that people could take that away from it. It's just man, when you look at some of those sequences earlier in the franchise, the Burj Khalifa and the helicopter, how real that stuff looks. It's come on.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because the movies are delivering that popcorn entertainment, and because they're in, at least for this second part of the franchise, it's man, a lot of these stunts, even though we can agree that there's a touch up here and there, they're clearly editing out the wire works and everything. There are some moments where it's blink and you miss it. That was a CGI touched up scene, but for the most part, that's real. They did all those stunts and everything, and you can see the behind the scenes. But yeah, it's that point where they're they did so much, and they accomplished so much that I am okay with, okay, I can forgive here, that, or it won't bother me here because you already gave me all this other cool stuff.
Well, I know, for instance, that there was a controversy when they were filming because they were going to use like an actual bridge, like a historic bridge that they were going to film that stunt for with the train flying off. I don't think they were actually going to blow it up, but they did, oh, you shouldn't be filming, they shouldn't be doing this. And then they ended up building a replica bridge to run the train off of.
Yeah.
But even, I don't know, maybe the camera was just too close up and wanted a wider shot, but even watching the train plummet down into the ravine didn't look real. But I'm sure they did.
I hate heights, and even watching that stunt, I was like, I swallowed my heart.
You mentioned Jurassic World earlier. You know the scene where what's his name? Kingpin, the actor who plays Kingpin.
Oh, Michael Clark. Oh,
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio, yeah. When Vincent D'Onofrio is talking in the paddock with the Raptors, and they're checking, like, I think it was Delta, that Raptor, and it's in the cage, and you see just the head. In the behind the scenes, that's an actual animatronic, but they layer it in so much CGI to make it look more alive and vibrant that it kind of missed the point of having the animatronic. So it really stands out in the scene. And then when you look at the panel, well, why didn't you just leave the Raptor? Because you see they're molding the Raptor head for that specific scene, but then they just, in their ability to clean it up, they just made it look worse. They put too much CG on it.
Yeah. Well, it's like the remake the prequel to The Thing. It was actually a practical effect, and then it was released as a CGI monstrosity.
Yeah, the only good part of that first Jurassic World movie was the dead Diplodocus that they see in the field. That's the only really good animatronic scene that they have.
No, the best animatronic scene that they had was Bryce Dallas Howard running in high heels.
Yeah, Lemon Pie says we're not doing hot peppers, Ernesto.
Yes, quote it. Put it on a T-shirt.
Suzanne says, "What are you talking about, Scotty37?" Likely in response to you saying you're blocked on Twitter.
No, dude, check your shit.
Blocking Scotty may be the default setting on X. You may need to go into settings.
True story.
Also, he's also.
I blame Elon.
He's also in Canada, so maybe that's why.
Oh, that's true. I'm
Daniel,
surprised.
you haven't seen Mission Impossible 3. You have to see it before you see The Final Reckoning, but it sounds like you've already seen it.
You don't have to. You don't have to. It does help, but it's a blink and you miss it fan service reference. But I would say that Mission Impossible 3 is better than the new one.
Well, we'll get to the rankings next week, but
let's get the rankings on this one so we can call it a night.
Please. Oh yeah,
let's get the fuck out of here.
Okay, so what I think I would give this. Ooh, what did I give Fallout last week, Scott? I gave it like a 9.
I have this information.
I think it went 8 or 9. 9 maybe.
8.5.
Oh.
I'll give this a 7.
All right.
For Mission 7.
Okay.
We will join the entity's rave party next time.
Yeah, it was cool. That was cool. I forgot about that. The rave party was cool.
I like that it was right there in front of your face until they actually mentioned. I'm just like, oh shit, it's right in front of your noses.
You might say this interested party is the interested party.
Yeah. That was a great line.
I admit when I first saw that, I thought, okay, this is really cheesy, but then it kind of grew on me a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's I love that line.
And it's one of those moments where the MacGuffin is right there in plain sight, and it's a giant scene. I'm like, oh, it's here. It's alive. It's breathing.
I want to give big credit to Vanessa Kirby for not only playing the White Widow, but also playing Grace. Like that's also something that I have previously given credit when Philip Seymour Hoffman played Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
Like I love it when they do that shit.
Yeah.
So you were right, Scott. You were asking, I think, last week whether or not the White Widow was going to turn out to be the daughter of the other White Widow from the original, or if it was just a riff, and then it confirmed it actually is.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a moment, and it didn't happen, because when she puts the mask on for the White Widow, she doesn't put eye contacts, so she has her natural eye color, whereas Vanessa Kirby's are blue, but Grace's are brown. And when she's in the mask, her eyes are brown. And when she's talking to Kittredge, because Kittredge knows her since she was a kid, I was waiting for him to be giving her a monologue, and at one point just stop and be like, "Wait, what's wrong with your eyes?" And
What's the name? What's the name of the White Widow? What's her real name?
Alana Mitsopoulos.
So Alana, why are your tits bigger?
Mhm.
Well, she is wearing a coat.
What do you give it, Scotty, out of 10?
How many Haley Atwells do you give it?
Well, always 2. That's a head start. So I don't know, man. Like, I think this is good. I think it's fun. I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna put it on with the Brad Bird one.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd be lower than me. Interesting.
No, I think this is a really fun movie. I think it destroys the canon of the Mission Impossible franchise, but I think that there is charisma to behold. I think that there are stakes. I think that there are incredible performances. The stunts are fantastic. But yeah, no, I'm going to give it an 8.
I think the next one affects the canon of the Mission Impossible franchise more than this one does. But
well, don't you worry. I will burn that shit down next week.
I wasn't aware that this one was breaking the canon at all. Is what I was getting at.
Yeah. It is. I know a lot of people who live in retirement homes, and they are very angry.
Oh, you're talking about in relation to the in relation to the TV show. Well, yeah, we're way past that. We're several movies past that now. All right, Steve.
No, I know, but every time
I think we're underestimating just how much he's not going to let that go.
Never gonna.
Steve,
never gonna let it go.
What do you give it, Steve? Out of 10 matches,
I've been going back and forth, but I think I'm gonna land at a solid 7. I was gonna 6.5, but I think it's better.
Oh
than that.
wow!
Oh wow!
I thought you were gonna be way lower than me.
I thought you were giving it a 3.
You were contemplating destroying your TV.
It's just that one scene. It's just that one scene at the end. I did not like it. I fucking hated it.
I'm sorry, I was shocked. What is the number again?
7.
7. Wow.
7.
Solid 7. And
you are a strange boy.
I've been given a lot of 6s and 6.5s, and maybe lower for the second one, but this one.
Well, the second one was a 4, so you do have a history
that second one's a piece of shit. But
yeah, exactly. That's a piece of shit, and you gave it a 4.
This movie.
You overhype the things that you.
The Sinner says that was a great moment about the eyes, and they should have written that bit for Kittredge or White Widow.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it. I thought this movie was really good for 3/4 of the movie, and then it gets long. It gets overly long, and the end is just the height of silliness for me. But I had a good time up until then.
Sinners wants to know if we mentioned Gabriel and just how lackluster he was. Well, I think they get away with him being a bit mysterious and not telling you much about him in this movie because he has that suave kind of debonair effect, and they keep playing up that Ethan knows this guy's really dangerous, which is why I justifiably thought, well, there's got to be more to it than him just framing him for murder.
And I think you have a really good.
I mean, I agree he's no Owen Davian. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman is arguably probably the best.
But you have a really good point.
That bad in this movie.
Kat, you have an excellent point in terms of this. First things first, this is called part 1. Right. And you anticipate an elevation of the villain in part 2.
Yeah.
You've set up all this stuff. Can't wait to find out. Well, we're going to find out next week.
Yeah.
So, Ernesto, what do you give this movie on a scale from 1 to 10 matches?
Well, the head start of 2 very juicy Haley Atwell scores, I give it an 8.
All right.
And for what it's worth, Sinners, Ernesto did like Gabriel as the villain.
Yeah.
I think Gabriel is a fascinating villain in part 1.
And I
will. Here are my spoilers for my review of Final Reckoning.
I think we already have have the
Well,
idea of that.
no, but I want to say it eloquently and then stop talking. I'll let you guys talk for a bit. But I just want to say that this Mission Impossible movie is the best of both worlds, part one. It is engaging, intriguing, playful, and the stakes are high.
Steaks? Nobody said there were going to be steaks. I'm hungry.
Not actual steaks, but
Mhm.
yes, now I'm hungry too.
But
Daniel and I
this is the best of both worlds, part one.
Daniel and I, we just want yummy steaks.
Yes, but how many ounces?
12.
Oh yes. Sinner says Haley Atwell is stunning. The airport scene. The shots linger on her face. She's stunning.
She has that
She
smile.
is.
She has that smile where she automatically flicks her tongue when she's. I'm just like, God damn it! You practiced that, didn't you?
And Suzanne
in the
says she
mirror,
doesn't
which is
know how to fix
4.
Scotty being blocked.
And once the terrorists go away,
Yeah, we'll get used to it. But it's good to see you, Suzanne. You know what? I'm happy to be blocked.
Daniel's Hot Topic says Sean Connery would slaughter Ethan Hunt.
Ooh.
Sean
No.
Connery Bond, that is.
Do you think?
It depends who's writing the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Bond is more cold-blooded. Like in that scene in Dr. No when he's like, sorry, this is Smith & Wesson. You've had your 6. Or that's a Smith & Wesson. You've had your 6. And it's like, because Ethan never really tries to murder the villain. He's always trying to save the world, and the villain just gets in the way and ends up dying as a result. Like, Ethan's not really going out of his way to be lethal with anybody. So, whereas Bond, Sean Connery's Bond has shown capability of being, like, absolutely lethal. Like,
yeah, but here's
I
what
don't know. He was taking out them fools in the desert.
That's true.
My problem with answering a matchup of two characters like that, specifically if you're being specific about which Bond, is that I would like to have someone tell me if a spy of the 60s, the way they fight in those movies, can handle a spy of the 21st century the way they fight now.
That's true.
Because I can't see Sean Connery's Bond being able to match the speed of an Ethan Hunt when they fight.
That's a good point.
Like maybe a Daniel Craig Bond can take on Ethan Hunt, but I don't know if a Sean Connery Bond can take Ethan Hunt just based on fighting capabilities.
I don't know. I saw Sean Connery cook a fool with a fan, like a desk fan. So I don't know.
Right, but when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, is like Ethan would probably might win that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can say to argue is Yamana, because that's from the James Bond movie. Can we get out of here, please?
Sure.
I mean, if you're in a rush.
I am.
Apparently.
So you guys can stick around for as long as you want. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Well, we got to thank the chat first.
Yeah, you go for it. I'm out of here. I got to go smoke and pee, yo.
Thank you for Sinners, Suzanne, Daniel's Hot Topics, Lemon Pie, and Cinema Gulp, and Matt G. Thank you all for being here. Oh, I was going to do the countdown, but I guess have you got the con, Steve, to end properly? This is how we ended. 3,
2,
1.